All right, I think we're going to get started. Thank you to everyone for being here. This is really exciting to have such a great response for this. This is our first time doing an info session virtually, and also our first time doing district-wide info session. Normally, we focus a lot more at the club level on this, but we thought, given Zoom and being able to leverage that, why not try and get as much information out there as we can? So this is really exciting to have so many of you here. So thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. So as you know, what we're going to be speaking about tonight is the Rotary Youth Exchange Scholarship here in District 6330. We will be throwing around some Rotary jargon. We'll try to keep it to a minimum, and we will be giving you a little bit of terminology to help understand that. But just so you know, District 6330 is an amalgamation of about 60 Rotary clubs that stretch all the way in the north from Tobermory all the way down into the States, Flint, Michigan, and some other areas there, and down into the Sarnia area. So it's a pretty big stretch, but quite narrow in terms of east to west. All right. Okay, so let's dive right in. Oh, already I'm jumping ahead. I'm so excited. Okay, so first things first, just a couple of introductions. I'm not sure if all of these people are on the call. I know a couple people had other plans, but I just wanted to introduce you to the Rotarians who are behind the program at the district level. Now at the club level, there are more Rotarians involved, lots and lots of Rotarians involved that work so hard to make this program happen. But just to quickly introduce you to who's who, I guess, at the district level, we've got Ross Barnett, who is our district chair. I don't see Ross on here, but I believe he is joining us. So he might just be running a few minutes behind. So he is in charge of the program for District 6330. All right, then you've got me. My name is Kirk Langford, and I am the outbound coordinator. So I deal with these students that are preparing to go on exchange, to go abroad from this district here in Ontario and Michigan. So that's why I'm the one with you folks tonight. Then we've got Mark Oliver and Marika Hennick, who are inbound coordinators. Mark is actually there. You can see him on the screen. And they are in charge of the students that come to District 6330 for their exchange from abroad. So when they're there, he's doing his best to keep them out of trouble, keeping them safe, keeping them engaged, making sure they're doing well in school, all of that really fun stuff. Then we've got our conference coordinators, who are Dawn and Danielle Bork. Not a coincidence that they have the same last name, they are married. And they basically take care of logistics surrounding our orientation and other conferences that we do. So whether it's an orientation for our outbounds, an orientation for our inbounds, they're the ones making sure that there's enough beds for everybody, that there's food on the table, everybody has to bring everything they need, and that sort of thing. Then we've got Harry Justin, who is our amazing treasurer. So we all treat him very, very well because he manages the money, and we like that. Okay. And then we've got Roseanne Field, who is our district counselor. So she is a clinical psychologist and helps us in such an important role in providing, mental assistance for our students, just preparing them to go on exchange, understanding the struggles that they may face as an exchange student, but also just dealing with the highs and the lows of exchange. And then even helping them when they return as well, that readjustment phase. And then she also works closely with our inbound students when they're here, if they may be experiencing homesickness or culture shock. She's there as support for those students when they need her, and she's wonderful. And then our last but not least is Grace McClure. So Grace McClure is actually one of our past exchange students. She went on exchange just a few years ago to Brazil, and she is now the director of a program that we call ROTEX. And ROTEX basically stands for Rotary Exchange. So it's basically a bunch of students who went on exchange and are now back and want to help with the program. So they are a huge asset to our program. They provide so much information to the outbounds in terms of, what is it actually like to live in this country? What language do you really need to know? How do they actually dress there? So instead of talking to a bunch of old farts like us Rotarians, they're able to speak to young people who they connect with better, and also people that have just been there, right? So it's not, well, this is what I read about Norway in a book. This is what I experienced 1 year ago when I was living in Norway. So we know that their information is relevant and recent, and they create a really great support network for the students, both when they're away, but also when they come back and they're going through that, first year of university and college, and you're going through reverse culture shock and all this, and you're going, oh, I just want to be back in Denmark. You have this wonderful group of people who can sympathize with you and really help you get out of what can be a little bit of a rut sometimes. So that is our district committee. And again, I did mention that at the club level, there's also many, many volunteers as well that help make this program possible. All right. So first and foremost, you may be wondering, what the heck is Rotary? Some of you may already be very involved, but for those of you that aren't, the quick definition is Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. We are a service club, and what that means is we go out in the community and we do all sorts of projects. And one of those projects is the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, but we also are those people that are out there, trying to get a bench for the local park if it needs one. We're doing garbage cleanups. We are raising money for the splash pad in the town, really just trying to make our communities, both big and small, a better place to be through fundraising and through service projects and through volunteering initiatives. So you may notice the wheel in the background. Ooh. You may also have seen the wheel in my picture there, and it's in Mark's as well. That is the Rotary wheel. All right, that's where that comes from. And the reason we're called Rotary, quick little tidbit for you, if you're ever at a Rotary trivia night, this could come in handy, is that Rotary was named so because there was a habit among the founders of the club to rotate whose house they would go to or place of business they would go to for each meeting. So Rotary became the name for the organization. Okay. I know I am going quite fast, but I want to get to the really good stuff. I know this kind of intro stuff is important, but I really want to get to the exciting stuff. So I am kind of flying through this, but certainly slow me down if you need to, and ask questions as well when you have them, okay? And you can put your questions in the chat as well. We're happy to answer them when it makes sense to do so, all right? Okay, so then what is Rotary Youth Exchange specifically? So you might often see pictures like this, people holding flags, and you're like, okay, so it's a program where you pose with a flag from a different country. Sounds cool, sign me up, right? But obviously, Rotary Youth Exchange is a lot more than that. So first and foremost, it is a study abroad program, okay? Which means that you go and live in another country for a school year, so about 11 to 12 months, and you are living with a host family while you are in that country. Okay. It is both a cultural and academic exchange. And what that means is that, yes, you are there to experience the culture and you're there to learn the language, but you are also there to go to school. And the visa that you'll get is contingent upon that. So what it doesn't mean is that it's a free trip to another country where you get to spend the year as a tourist. Okay. Instead, you're going to school consistently. Okay. And you are making an effort to, fit in the school and do what you can to do well at school. And also on the side, the cultural aspect, of course, is learning the language, living with the host family, and learning all about the culture as well. It's all about lifelong friends. I can tell you that. I was an exchange student to Brazil 15 years ago this year. Mark was an exchange student a few years before that to Australia. And he and I, are still in contact with some of our friends and family from exchange. So it's incredible that you make these lifelong global connections that really wouldn't happen any other way. It's a really unique program in that way. And I know we have some other past students on there as well. I think we've got Suzanne Brown on there, who was an exchange student, and Sue as well was an exchange student. So lots of former exchange students. So it's really powerful to see that they believed in it so much that, they're coming back to help continue the program and make sure that it's running and keeping us in check. That's important too, right? Okay. And generally speaking, with this host family situation, you're generally hosted by 3 host families. That's not a guarantee. Sometimes it ends up being 2, sometimes it could be 4, sometimes 1, but by and large, we try to make sure that the student has 3 different families during the time that they're on their exchange. The Rotary Youth Exchange Program is sponsored and supported by Rotary clubs and Rotarians. All right, so the whole program, is managed by Rotarians. So it is a volunteer initiative, meaning that no one is getting paid to do this. No one takes home a paycheck for this. We are doing this because we believe in the program, and we really think that it has the ability to change lives and make the world a better place. As cheesy as that sounds, it actually is very, very true. Okay. So that's another important aspect of it, is that it's completely run by Rotary clubs and Rotary districts and very much individual Rotarians. And as many rebounds will tell you, and we're going to hear from some past students tonight, it's what they would call the best year of their life. It's a whirlwind. It is highs and lows for sure, but you come out of this experience just changed as a person, so much more open and enlightened to what the world has to offer, which is so amazing. And so to that end, a lot of students come back saying it was the absolute best year of their life, which is really cool. And that speaks volumes. So quickly about our mission of the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, and then you're going to get a break from listening to me. So one of Rotary's primary goals is promoting peace around the world. And through the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, it aims to make the world a more peaceful place, one exchange at a time. when I was an outbound student back in 2004, we went to a conference in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It was our last training conference. And we heard from the Rotary International president, who was from Sweden that year. Carl Wilhelm was his name, Carl Wilhelm Stenhammer, I believe. And he was speaking to a bunch of teenagers and he said, you know, I really wish every 17-year-old in the world did a Rotary Youth Exchange. And then he kind of looked at us and went, do you want to know why? And so of course we went, yes, why? And I believe there were about 1,200 of us in the room at the time. It was a big like lecture hall. And so we said, yeah, why? And he said, well, because I truly believe that if every 17-year-old in the world did a Rotary Youth Exchange, there'd be no more wars. And then he goes, do you want to know why? And of course, yeah, tell us why. Tell us why. He goes, well, here's why. Because you can't shoot your best friend. And if you're a Canadian and your best friend happens to be a German, it doesn't matter what country they came from, you're never going to start a war with someone that you love and you care about. And I think that's so true. I think that's what this program is truly promoting at a fundamental level, is meeting people and becoming friends and family with people that you never would have met otherwise, and certainly maybe never would have been friends and family with. So it's got a really powerful impact. All right, but enough of my sappy stuff. You want to hear from actual people that didn't go on exchange in the Stone Age. So to that end, we've got, actually, I'm going to jump through this slide and then I'll come back because I really want you to hear from Mateo before he has to head out. So we are going to hear from our friend Mateo. Oh, there we go. So Mateo is an inbound student, meaning that he came here and did his exchange just actually 2 years ago during a pandemic, if you can believe that, or rather at the beginning of a pandemic. So he had quite an adventure and I've asked him to speak to us. He's actually here from Chile tonight, but I've asked him to take a few minutes just to speak to us about his experience on exchange. So Mateo, please go ahead.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Well, I need to talk about my exchange. Well, first of all, I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm Mateo Pomier. I'm from Chile. I went to Canada in 2019 and I finished my exchange in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. And yeah, it was actually the best year of my life. I went there and I didn't know anything about English. I didn't know anything like about the culture and I didn't know how I should behave in the country. And by the end of the year of my exchange, I felt like a second home. Canada, I made so many like friends, new family members in my host families. I still in contact with them. We're still having like Zoom meetings every now and then with my friends. We call each other every 2 weeks. So yeah, basically the exchange teaches you how to grow, like in a way that it shows you how to, I don't know how to say it. It's just like it helps you to become like more confident about yourself and just getting to know more people around the world. And then like, okay, if I have a problem and I'm alone in Europe, I know I have friends to call, right? So yeah, it actually like Rotary, I think is the best like way to go in an exchange, because Rotary is always there with you. He's always gonna give you a call. Hey, how are you? You have like the meetings every week. You have the conferences, so you're never gonna be alone. You're always gonna be like with your Rotary friends or with the Rotarians. So yeah, it's the best year it was the best year of my life, and I can't forget all the moments that I made there, all the friends that I made, all the good moments that I really enjoyed, and I really wish I could go back to them right now. But I'm still in contact with all of my friends there, with my family members. So yeah, I really recommend you to go on exchange with Rotary.
Awesome, Mateo. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And it's so good to see you.
It's been a long time, right?
It has been. It feels like forever, but I guess it's actually been what, a year and a bit? Holy cow.
Yeah, kind of.
Amazing. It's so good to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I was just looking around at the names here, and we actually have more than one past inbound with us tonight. So I sent them a private message and I just said, hey, I didn't know you were coming. Any chance you want to speak for a quick moment? Because you definitely rather hear from these folks than me. So Enrique is with us, and I'm wondering if Enrique would mind taking a few minutes to speak as well. We're getting all the South Americans here tonight. Best group, always the South Americans. So Enrique, if you'd like to speak as well, that would be wonderful. We'd love to hear from you. Enrique attended as well here in District 6330. Yeah, so if you're there and you can hear me, that would be awesome. But There he is. There we go. You're still muted, but
Hi.
you've even got your Canada flag. Amazing. And your US
Oh
flag.
yeah, 50-30, America and Canada, all the way. Best year of my life. So yeah, I just want to say hi. Hi everyone. Hi Mark.
Amazing. Thanks, Enrique. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but I thought that was just great that you were here joining us. So that's awesome. Okay, and thank you again, Mateo. That's awesome. So I'm going to jump back to our definitions here because I don't want to go too far without giving some background info to make sense of all this jargon we're talking about, inbounds and outbounds and rebounds. So to start off, District 6330 is part of what we call Central States Rotary Youth Exchange. So it's one of 20 districts that we work together in order to support the youth exchange activities that we do. And that stretches kind of around the Great Lakes in Ontario and a number of US states as well. So you might hear us talk about Central States or CSRYE. That is the larger exchange body that we work with to help leverage how many countries we can send our students to, how many countries we can get students from, and just really helps us with the administration and organization side of things. An inbound, as you heard, Mateo and Enrique are both inbound. So that means a student that came from another country to live here in our district in Canada and the US. An outbound is the opposite of that. So an outbound are students from our district that have going out abroad on their year on exchange. Okay. Yes, take care, Mateo. Thanks again for coming and speaking. We appreciate it. A rebound is a student that has gone on their exchange from our district and has now returned. So once they're successfully returned, we call them a rebound. And eventually we sort of promote them to a Rotex once they've been back for a year. All right. A host club. So that's a Rotary club that hosts an inbound student. So as Dawn mentioned there in the chat, Mateo was hosted by the Rotary Club of Walkerton. So they chose to accept Mateo into their club. And a sponsor club is the club that sends out a student. So whoever's sending out an outbound, that's your sponsor club. So for those of you that are interested in going on exchange that are here on the call tonight, you will be sponsored by one of District 6330's clubs. Maybe it's St. Thomas, maybe it's Walkerton, Wyerton, Tobermory, wherever it is, you will be sponsored by one of those clubs to go on your exchange. And the last two terms I want to share with you are YEO, and that's basically a youth exchange officer. This is the person who at the club level is going to help you prepare your application, kind of get you ready for interviews and probably interview you at the club level as well to make sure you're ready to move forward. And will be helping you just as you get ready to go on exchange. They're also the person who is responsible for an inbound student. So when our club hosts an inbound student, okay, they're the one who is the legal guardian of that student while they're in 6330. And the YEC is the Youth Exchange Counselor. So we generally say the YEO is like a parent. The Youth Exchange Officer acts as their parent or guardian while you're on exchange, okay? The YEC kind of acts as like an aunt or an uncle. So someone that the inbound student can go to ask for advice, just to feel comfortable if they have questions or comments or concerns about life here in Canada or the US. They have that person that they can go to just to get some advice, someone who can kind of stand in their corner if there's ever issues or conflict that arises, all right? And so for anyone who is here thinking of going on exchange or whose parents are here because you might be your child thinking of going on exchange, when your child goes on exchange to that other country, okay, they will have a YEO in their host club in their host country, and they'll have a YEC as well. So someone to look after them, help them, support them throughout their exchange year. Okay, I've got someone here in the chat saying what geographic area is District 6330? That's a great question. So in terms of north to south, we stretch all the way to Tobermory, like right up to the point there, all the way down to Sarnia, and then we curve around into the US. So we cover a little bit north of Detroit. So we cover Flint, Michigan, a couple other areas there, Genesee Valley, and then east to west, we go right along the water, okay, right along Lake Huron, and west, we stop just about Stratford. So we're in Stratford, but we're not in, for example, Tavistock. I believe that's past our district. So that's kind of where the line cuts there. Okay, more or less. All right, so thank you for that, bearing with me through the terminology. Not the most exciting thing, but still good to know. Okay, so why might you pick Rotary? If your son or daughter has been interested in exchange programs, or I should say, if you've been interested in exchange programs, you might have done research on a few, and there's lots out there. So it's understandable that you might be saying, why would I pick Rotary? There's a couple of reasons that we think it really stands out. First is that we have a thorough selection and orientation and training process. Because this program is run by volunteers and no one is making a profit for it, we're not worried about just taking someone's money and saying, perfect, we'll send anyone on exchange as long as they pay the bill, right? For us, it's important that we're sending the right people because we know that you are acting as ambassadors of the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, of Rotary, and even of your local Rotary Club and of Canada or US, right? So because there's not this profit involved, we are only going to send people who we feel are good candidates for this program. And not just that are going to do well for the program, but are also going to do well. If we have someone that we feel won't succeed at exchange, we don't want to send them because that's a huge responsibility for them to go if they don't think they're going to be able to be successful. So we only send students that we really truly think are going to be successful, and we make sure that we provide rigorous selection processes, but also we provide a lot of orientation and training so that when our students go, they feel prepared. And we hear that all the time when other students meet inbounds from other countries while they're on exchange. They go, oh my gosh, we met these other students from Norway. They had 1 day of training and then they were sent on exchange. Like how can that work? And here we have weekend conferences where students are provided with culture shock training, home sickness training, travel safety training. So they're well prepared before they go on their exchange. Next piece is that you're hosted by a Rotary Club and host families. So a family that knows the local area. Okay, an area that, you know, we're not just sending them there and saying, yep, figure it out when you get there. You're hosted by a host family that lives there, that's vetted by the local Rotary Club. And the Rotary Clubs in those countries, they know their families, they know their local community. And so that's an important piece. So you're supported not just in Canada or the US by Rotary, but wherever you're going abroad, there's that Rotary connection. Cultural activities with Rotary and Rotarians. Unlike some exchange programs where it's sort of like you end up there and if you can pay for other stuff and do other stuff, great. But otherwise you're kind of left to your own devices. You have this Rotary Club to support you. So yes, support you in kind of the more serious ways, but also the fun ways. Rotarians might take you on trips. They might, you know, bring you to places. They might just take you out for a weekend, those sorts of things. That's obviously, you know, not a guarantee, but it is, they do tend to really embrace the program in the clubs that have it. And therefore they try to make the most of it and really make you feel welcome and make sure you get a good experience on your exchange. Okay. You have, as I mentioned, the support network abroad and at home. Okay, so again, if you're having issues, homesickness, culture shock, issues with the host family, issues with the Rotary Club, you've got resources in your host country, you've got resources abroad to connect to, but you also have us here back in Canada and the US to connect with, and we can help and use our connections to make sure that you feel supported, okay? And a much lower cost than other study abroad options, significantly less. The biggest reason for that, folks, it's a volunteer program. None of us are taking home a paycheck. So there is a fee associated with it, but that fee is only to cover your expenses and the expenses that we incur from renting, you know, conference rooms and stuff like that. We don't bring home any money from this program personally. Okay, so it's a significantly lower cost than other exchange programs that you might find out there that are private or for profit, I should say. Okay, and I'm just going to quickly make sure I didn't miss any questions. We understood that there's also a short-term summer exchange program. My son will be 15 next summer, so we are only ready for the short-term at that time. Okay, yeah, Carrie, that's a great question. We don't have the short-term summer exchange program running in our district at the moment. That's just kind of been we're in the early stages of getting that running. So by next summer, we very well could have something on in the works. I don't want to make any guarantees at this point, but reach out to us after, although I feel like you already sent us an application, if I remember correctly. I recognize the last name, but definitely keep in touch with us because by next summer we could have that kind of up and running. So yeah, we'll keep that conversation going. But as of right now, it's not an existing program for our district. Okay, so next question, where the heck can I go? Probably you're all wondering, what can I go? Can I go to any country? Do I just spin the globe and I pop here and okay, I get to go wherever the globe lands? No, unfortunately, that's not how it works. And I just realized I dated myself by talking about globes because anyone under 30 was probably like, is he talking about Google Maps? Like, is that what he means here? So yeah, I mean, Google Maps, you know, just spin your mouse on Google Maps, wherever it lands, that's where you're going to go. That's not how our program works. So we work really hard to establish good relationships with Rotary districts all over the world and select countries to make sure that we know that you're going to be safe and well supported and taken care of, whatever country you end up going to. So because of that, we have about 35 countries that you could go to. That includes countries in South America, that includes countries in Europe, that includes countries in Asia, and some even in Africa. Okay, so I don't have a complete list here because it does change a little bit from year to year, but there is a fair bit of selection. So almost any continent you're looking to go to, okay, there's going to be choices for you. Okay. But certainly about 35 or so options are presented each year, which is great. Kim Kearns is saying, can you go for a semester or only for a full year? Our program is a full year program. That's a stipulation of the visa. Generally speaking, we're not able to work with just a semester long program. So it is a full year program. That's the expectation. Okay. All right. Another thing to mention with where you can go, when you are filling out your application, you make a choice of 12 countries. So out of the 35 or so options, you pick the 12 you want to go to the most. Okay. And you're usually guaranteed a spot in those 12. You're not guaranteed number 1 or number 2 or anything like that. Unfortunately, the way the numbers fall, we can't guarantee that you'll get your number 1 country, but we do our absolute best, as long as it's the right fit for you, to make sure you get to at least one of your top 3 or 4 if we can. But at the same time, I've heard speeches of students. I had one student way back in the day that went to, I think, their 27th choice, because back in the day, you used to choose a lot more. And they went to their 27th choice. And they start their presentation by saying that, and we all went, oh my gosh. And they said, and I wouldn't change a thing. It was still the best year of my life. So what we try to encourage all of our students to be excited for is not a specific country or a specific language or a specific city, but to be excited for the experience, to be excited for the possibilities of what they could learn while they're abroad, whether they end up in Denmark or Zambia or Malaysia or Brazil. It really doesn't matter. You can make it the best year of your life if you want to make it the best year of your life. Okay. All right. So a quick overview of how the program works from a timeline perspective. We usually say that this is a 3-year program. And the first year is your application and training. So your prepping year to go out. So it includes the application process, it includes the club and district level interviews, and it includes then the students attending district training and orientation conferences to prepare them for their year abroad. Year 2 is your exchange year. So the year that you are an inbound in another country. So you live as a local in a foreign country, adapting to new culture, customs, and a new language. Your 3rd year, once you come back, is what we call the return year. And that's when you're a rebound student. And that year you're dealing with reverse culture shock, and you're going to do a presentation to your local Rotary club and maybe even other clubs about your year abroad. All right. So it's essentially a 3-year program. Now let's take a quick look at that in a little bit more detail. So right now we're here in August, and between August and November 2021, you're doing the outbound application process. So you're getting all of your paperwork ready and everything that you need to get your application ready to go. Okay. Then in November, you will have what we call district interviews. So you'll be interviewed by a panel of people who are going to help make sure that you are the right choice for this program and make sure that it's the right choice for you as well. If you are successful at that interview, then in January 2020, so a few months kind of lay low during Christmas, and then in January 2020, you will find out which country you are going to. Okay, so that's a really exciting time. That's pretty cool, as you can imagine. March 2022 would be your first outbound orientation conference. So you would meet with all of the other outbounds in the entire district. And in fact, this year we're doing a multi-district collaboration. So we'll be training with 2 other districts, which provides a ton of wealth of knowledge and expertise in training, which we're really excited about. So we'll meet with those 3 districts, and together we will do our first outbound orientation conference. And this is where I mentioned we're going to cover things like travel safety, homesickness, culture shock, etiquette around the world, body language, things to help get you ready to be successful abroad. Okay. Then we have another one in May. And then our 3rd one is in July. Okay. In between those, we will be having monthly Zoom calls just to check in, see if you have any questions, see if you've been getting updates from your host country, checking on your language acquisition process. So how well are you learning the language of your host country? But those are the 3 in-person conferences that we'll have. Then sometime in July or August, depending on the club or the country you're going to, you'll leave on your exchange. Your exchange begins. You'll have your exchange year from somewhere around July, August to the following June, July. Okay. And then in June or July of 2023, you will return home and begin the 3rd year, which is again that year of reverse culture shock when you're back in Canada or the US. Okay. Again, feel free to throw questions in the chat or stop me and unmute yourself if you do have any questions.
I think it's also important to highlight that your year back is a lot to do with reverse culture shock, but also to do with training the new students that are going on the next year. because it's kind of talking to people who just got back from exchange. So it's getting firsthand knowledge of they've just come back 2 months ago and now they're starting the process with you to help walk you through that process.
That's right. Yeah. And as I mentioned kind of earlier, thank you for that, Rachel. And as I mentioned earlier, we really do leverage those rebound students, those Rotech students, to help us train the students, because they have this, very recent firsthand knowledge of what it's like to live abroad and live in those different countries, which makes their information so helpful to us. And they form such amazing relationships with the exchange students. So it's a really powerful thing. Please give examples of reverse culture shock. So the way reverse culture shock works, I guess in a nutshell, is think of living your life with one pair of glasses on. They're red tinted glasses. So your whole life, you see everything red tinted. Then they throw you in Brazil. Well, in Brazil, everybody sees the world through blue glasses. So they throw out the red glasses and you start having to see the world through blue glasses. But at first you're wearing those red glasses. So everything kind of seems confusing and strange because everyone there sees the world through blue tinted glasses. But as the year goes on, you start to understand because you start to see glasses through the same color as them. You start to see things through the same lens that they do. Okay. Then you come back to your home country where you've just finished learning how to see the world through those blue lenses the Brazilians see life through. And boom, we're back to the red lenses. But you still have your blue lenses on. So it's a matter of you've learned to see the world in a different way. You've learned to get along with people in a very different way. And now you're thrown back to your home country, which you think is something you've always known. You understand how it works, but now you're seeing it through a totally different lens. So a good example of that, South Americans are very touchy compared to the rest of the world. Okay. So when you go to South America, they're touching your skin whenever they're talking, they're giving you kisses on the cheek, they're hugging you. And you first arrive there and you're like, oh God, bubble, personal bubble, get the heck away from me. But by the end of your exchange, you're hugging and kissing everybody and you want to hug and you want to touch all the time and life's great. And then you go back to Canada and you arrive in the airport and you go to hug everybody and they're going, oh God, personal bubble, what are you doing? So that's that readjustment to go, oh, right, that's weird here. I forgot that people think that's weird here. So that's an example of reverse culture shock, is trying to understand what it's like to be a foreigner, basically back in your native country. All right. But good question. Next question here, would they be able to come home for Christmas or the holidays? No, they're expected to stay there. And it's a good thing because we want them to have the experience of what is Christmas like in Japan? Why does everybody order KFC for Christmas in Japan? What do they do at New Year's in Brazil? Why are they all wearing white and all at the beach? Why are there fireworks on New Year's? So we want them to have those really great experiences of the different holidays and the ways that our holidays or the same ones we celebrate are celebrated abroad. So they are not allowed to come home for those holidays, unfortunately. Okay. Well, I say unfortunately, but I know deep down it's actually a very fortunate thing. They get to have those amazing experiences. I remember Christmas Eve, I was swimming in a pool in Brazil and it was about 30 degrees. And I thought, I will never be doing this again. And so far, 15 years later, I was right. And so I'm so excited that I got to have that once in a lifetime experience. Okay. All right. I'm going to move forward. I see a couple other questions, but I'll save them for a little bit here. So
sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question before I forget about the application process.
Mm-hmm.
So I filled out the preliminary application and I understand there's a second one.
Yeah.
Because it says on the website, it says a representative from your club will contact you about that.
Yeah.
Do you know approximately when that is?
So no, that will depend on which club. So Julia, let me just take your name down and I'll check into that because
Perfect.
You sent yours in a little while ago already, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, let me check into that. Okay, I'll just make a note here.
Okay, thank you so much.
Not a problem. Good question. Okay, perfect. So what are the qualifications? First one is that you're between 15 and a half and 18 and a half, and you haven't graduated high school as of August 1st, 2022. So this would be when you're on exchange. So as of August 1st, you're between 15 and a half and 18 and a half, and you haven't yet graduated high school, okay? Next one is in terms of academics, you generally need to be in the top half of your class academically. That does give a fair bit of wiggle room there, but we generally look for top half of the class. We look for people who are involved, informed, and upstanding students and citizens. Okay, so people that try to be involved in their community, people that are kind of aware of what's going on in the world. We don't need someone who spends 4 hours a day reading newspapers. That's not what we're looking for. But someone who is kind of engaged and tries to, get involved in their school, get involved in their community, is maybe trying to make a difference in that way. And of course, by the upstanding part, someone who's respectful, someone that we feel would be a good ambassador to the program abroad. Okay. and a willingness and initiative to learn language and culture and get involved. So we have to feel that they're not going to sequester themselves and isolate themselves in their room if they end up getting culture shock, that they're going to be people that try to go out and make connections, make relationships, and make a good impression while they're on exchange. All right. So that's really what we're looking for. There aren't many kind of hard set qualifications. Definitely the age thing is a factor, because you have to be going to high school while you're there. And some, there's age restrictions related to that. But the other parts are more your personality, your attributes. And that's one of the reasons that we have such a rigorous interview process, because we want to make sure that we're capturing, getting a sense of those traits through the interview process. All right. Okay. So what does it cost? Well, the program is for our district, it's $7,000. Okay. Now what that includes is your flight. That includes your insurance while you're on your exchange. Okay, that includes all of the orientation conferences. So any materials, training materials you're provided with. It includes, a shelter or rather room and board while you're at the conferences, food and everything like that. Okay, it includes room and board while you're on exchange, right, through the host family. It includes tuition at the school that you're going to while you're on exchange, and it includes a monthly stipend. So you're given an amount of money. I believe it's the equivalent of about 125 US in terms of the cost of living every month while you're abroad. So the Rotary Club gives you that money and you can spend it on whatever you like, right? Just kind of helps make the exchange a little more affordable. So those pieces together are $7,000, right? There are some additional costs. Okay, so a couple of countries require separate insurance. And so if you're going to one of those countries that does require separate insurance, you're required to pay for that on your own. Also language camp. There's a couple of countries that require you to attend language camp when you arrive. Germany is one of them, for example. You are required to pay for that separately. That's not part of the $7,000. Anything to do with passports and visas. So if you have to send your passport away or you have to renew your passport, the cost of getting your visa, all of those associated costs, which usually aren't too bad, but it can depend. Like if you're renewing your passport, obviously that's a little bit more than if you have a passport that's going to be good to go. Those are on you. And the last part is just spending money above the stipend and in-country Rotary trips. So for example, in Brazil, there's 4 or 5 trips you can do that are kind of Rotary organized trips. And those are above and beyond the cost of the program. All right. Okay, I'll leave that slide on because I know there's a lot of information while I look at these couple of questions. Do you get academic credits for your time away? The answer to that is yes and no. And the reason it's yes and no is because that is completely up to your school. Most schools are very willing to work with you to get some credit. Some of them may not give you a full year's worth of credits, but they will usually give you at least a few credits. We've had varying experience with that. Some school districts are quite easy to work with. Some are a little bit tougher, but I don't think we've ever had a scenario where a student was completely denied any credits at all. Okay.
I think that the one credit that you can probably be guaranteed is the language portion of the credit. I know I got 2 4U high school credits for learning the German language while I was away, but a lot of the time you have to take an equivalency exam, so you have to have some sort of proof of proficiency when you come back to prove that you are fluent in German or whatever language it happens to be.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Rachel. So yeah, you're certainly, I don't want to say guaranteed, but usually that's not a very hard sell to get covered for that. It would be more if you're trying to get a math credit or a chemistry credit or something, you'd have to, as Dawn says here in the chat, you'll want to talk specifically with your school or your school board. So that's just a conversation that you start with your guidance counselor and you kind of go from there. Okay. Can you visit in the country with your child? Yes and no. I'm going to say the answer mostly is no. There's very few exceptions to that. Parents tend to ruin exchanges. They tend to ruin your time because you've gotten to be a local there. You've had a great, amazing year. You've got this awesome host family. And then mom and dad come and they don't realize how much you've changed. And they're like, oh, honey, let me fold your underwear for you and let me take you. And you're like, get away from me. No, I got this. So what we generally recommend is plan with your parents to go back and visit your host country, maybe the next Christmas or maybe the following year. We generally don't give approval for parents to go visit their kids. And with our inbounds, we generally don't give approval for families to come. Just because there tend to be a lot of problems. There's a lot of issues with, if I'm hosting a student, am I now expected to host their family and 3 siblings when they come as well? There's a lot of potential issues there. And in the past, we found that it leads to more problems than it solves. So we generally prefer you not to visit your child on exchange. Okay. How many students from the district are accepted each year? We don't tend to turn away many students. I don't want to make it sound like we're not a rigorous process, but just by the time they get to the district level, they have been interviewed by the club, they've been vetted by the club, so we tend to get good candidates. Most of the time when we turn down a student, it ends up being a student that's really just too young still. We say, you know what, let yourself mature and grow a little bit, just a little bit more independence perhaps, and then come back next year. So to give you a number, there isn't really one because it does depend on simply how many applicants we get. We're happy to take as many applicants as we can get, and we'll place as many as we can. 2 years ago, we were at 15 students, but if we got 20 applicants, I think we would be able to find room for them, certainly. So there's no set number currently that we say, no, after 8 or something, we don't allow any more students or anything like that. Okay. Can you elaborate on the stipend? Yeah, Mark, do you want to maybe speak to that?
Okay, sure, Kirk. And Don Moore, feel free to contradict me here or tighten this up, but just a word about the stipend to the students. You will, when you're abroad, you will usually receive a stipend or an allowance, if you will, from your host Rotary Club. The amount varies widely, but typical rule of thumb is it's about $100 a month that you'll get from your host Rotary Club. I think as Kirk alluded to, the stipend, $100 a month does not go far. It should not be you're only spending money while you're on exchange, or you're going to have a very lean exchange. Again, don't get hung up on the $100 a month, but it'll roughly give you that spending power that you would get from $100 a month here.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Mark. Yeah. And yes, the hosting district has to approve the visit from parents and siblings. Yeah, so when it comes to you going to visit your child abroad, you have to get permission from the host district where your child is in order to visit them. So you can't just show up with a surprise visit for Christmas or something like that. That would not be allowed. All right. And is there financial assistance to cover the cost? Yes. So Williams, you segued for me into the next thing, which is there are some programs available. 2 of them are, there's 2 scholarships that are available. Okay. One is at the Central States level and one is at the District 6330 level. So a smaller level. For that level, there's up to $5,000 available for the coming year. And that can be spread over multiple students, minimum 1,000, maximum 5,000. And it is based on financial need. And at the Central States level, there are scholarships available up to $2,000, and both of these are US, I should say, so up to $2,000 to help with the cost of exchange. Again, you do need to demonstrate financial hardship or financial need in order to qualify for it, but anybody is eligible to apply. Okay, so yes, there is some financial assistance available. However, one thing we have found in the past as well is that families are very happy to contribute to that in lieu of, for example, birthday gifts or Christmas gifts leading up to it. Once the student knows they're going, contributing to an exchange fund. And we often recommend that the students try to get a part-time job and save up a little bit as well, so they have a little bit of flexibility when they're in their host country. That can make a big difference as well. All right. So now I want to turn it over to the amazing Grace McClure, who is not only our Rotex director, but is also a former outbound to Brazil. I clearly have the years wrong because she did not just go last year. She went in, I think, 16, 17. Is that right, Grace? I apologize. I didn't have that.
It's been a hot second.
Right? It's been a little while. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to invite Grace here to speak about her experience as well. So Grace, please go ahead.
Yes. So I was hosted by the Rotary Club of Sarnia. And I was sponsored by the Rotary Club of Sarnia in Canada, and I was hosted by the Rotary Club of São Joaquim da Barra in Brazil, and that was in 2016 and 2017. So although Kirk said it's like a 3-year program, it can be also like a 5 or 6 year, because you meet so many people and make so many connections that you just want to keep involved with the community. So before going, it was funny because I actually watched a presentation done by a rebound, so someone who had just come back from exchange, and I had talked to my parents and said, oh no, like a year is too long. That's probably not for me. And then I did some more talking with her. Some of my friends were going on exchange, and I talked to more Rotarians and whatnot, and learned a lot about the program. And with that year of preparation, it's very extensive. Like, we do a lot of talking about things that you wouldn't necessarily think about. So habits, norms, different ways of thinking, and then also just like problem solving. And then we have an awesome member on the team named Roseanne, and she helps us with like coping skills and stuff like that. So if you're ever in a stressed situation, which like I still use the techniques to this day, they are life-saving. And then in some of the conferences, we have exchange inbounds, so exchange students from other countries, and you get a chance to connect with them, learn about how they're dealing with exchange, what they're up to, how they're living like in Canada, and then get to hear about maybe where you're going, or just like all of the other countries. And then it's really fun talking to the rebounds and the Rotex, because they're Canadians that have gone out and then come back. So maybe they're understanding where you're coming from a bit better. Just maybe you both came from Stratford or something like that. So you can kind of relate, oh, this place was like that, or something like that. So the homework was also really helpful. Like it might not sound like the most fun thing to do before you go on exchange, but it really helps you connect with the people when you get there. It shows them that you care about their country, their situation, and it just opens a lot of doors to more conversation and opportunities, because as you'll learn, it's really important to just like say yes to opportunities, even if it might seem like a really strange situation. A lot of really cool experiences and connections can come from that. For example, when I was in Brazil with my host family, I had agreed to go on a bike, like a cycling trip with them, and I didn't really cycle. It's really flat where I live in Canada, so I was not expecting like a 30-kilometer up and down trip in the heat, and except we ended up seeing wild toucans, and like seeing horses, and I tried sugar cane, because there's also sugar cane plantations in the area, and it was just a really wholesome time. But it's overall a very, very exciting experience, and sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you, Grace. That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a very transformative program, and it helps you a lot in the further years as well. Yes. Is there anything else you would like me to add, Kirk?
No, I think, no, that's perfect. I think you shared some really great information. So thank you so much for that, Grace. I appreciate it. Grace is taking time from her pickleball match in order to speak to us. So thank you so much, Grace. How's the pickleball going?
Okay, so I'm just going to say I probably wouldn't have started playing pickleball had I not gone on exchange, because pickleball is typically considered an old person sport. But exchange gave me the confidence to do what I want and enjoy, regardless of what everyone thinks.
Amazing. And this is why we love Grace. Awesome, Grace. I'll let you go back to your pickleball game, but thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking time.
And if anyone has any questions, I'll send my information to Kirk, or Kirk, you can just pass it on.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
Grace.
You're
Okay.
welcome. Have a great night, guys.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I wanted to give Enrique another chance to speak because I kind of called him out of the blue the first time, and he just mentioned maybe having a bit more to say. So Enrique, would you like to add on to what you had said before?
Well, I feel like Grace said everything. Like, it's hard to beat up. For those who don't know, I was an exchange student during 2018, 2020, 2019. Hi, America. I got distracted, sorry. And that was the best year of my life. For those students who are right now thinking about going on exchange, I would totally encourage you to go for the best experience of your life. It's an adventure. It's like it's a life in a year. It has good moments, sad moments, amazing moments that will make you grow as a person and will prepare you for everything. Like, if you go on exchange, you're prepared for life. Like, there's nothing you cannot do. It's like, I feel that I wouldn't be the person that I am today if I didn't go on exchange. And for the parents, I can assure you that if you go with this option, like, you will work with a team that will support your children, that will help them, they will prepare them. Like, in my country, for example, we didn't have any preparation like they had in 60-30. Like, our district in Canada is the most prepared group of people that could make your children to have the best year of their life. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, when I came back on exchange here in Bolivia, as the same way as Grace, I'm really involved. I came back, I want to keep going. I wanted my exchange not to be over, so I joined Rotex, and now I'm continuing helping exchange students, and now I'm organizing everything at a district level. Like, I'm the future Kirk of my district, I guess. But I can assure you that the children that go on exchange, when they go on exchange, they will have the same support that they had during their preparation, because they will never be alone, and they will find someone, they will find other inbounds to relate to, other Rotex to talk to. So this is an experience that will build friendship around the world and through the ages. So I don't know what else to say. I'm really nervous, sorry.
No, that's great. Enrique, you did great. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I'm so glad you decided to say more, because I think what you said there was really important. It really does prepare you for life. And it is like a life in a year, which is so incredible. So thank you so much. I see some questions in the chat here as well, so I'll just make sure we get caught up on that. I see Suzanne, if you scroll up a little bit, Suzanne Brown, who's one of our YEOs, the one in Walkerton, she's amazing. She's also a past exchange student, put some really helpful information about school credits in the chat, so make sure you scroll up and check that out. A couple people are asking about grade levels. So my daughter's in grade 12 for 2021-22. Does that mean she's ineligible? Not necessarily. What I would recommend is if you're interested after this session, even if your child is in grade 12, talk to us, right? Reach out to us separately so we can, because there are some case-by-case scenarios where we can sometimes work around things, or, you know, we can figure out those rules depending on, sometimes if they're younger, even though they're graduating grade 12, we can make it work. So if you're interested, talk to us, okay? Definitely make sure you talk to us. And I think that goes for Darlene as well, saying that, you know, it's 5th year in secondary. Make sure you chat with us if you're interested, and we'll do everything we can to get them to be able to go. Again, can't guarantee, but we will certainly have that conversation with you and see what the options are. Okay. Can they get a job in the host country? No, they're not allowed. They're on a student visa, so they're required to go to school, but that precludes them from being allowed to work in the host country. Okay. Do you go during what would be your grade 12 year, or can you go at the end of your grade 12 year? It's not really either. You can go even younger. Many of our students go actually during their grade 11 year, or what might be their grade 12 year. So it could be either. It doesn't have to be your grade 12 year is I guess what I'm saying. We prefer it to be during their grade 11 or grade 12 year. It becomes more difficult to place them if it's going to be after their grade 12 year, because that usually means that they will have already graduated. And is there typically kids living in the house? I think Rachel touched on this. It is common, but it's by no means required. You know, we look at host families based on, you know, there's no set criteria in terms of they have to have children or not. We've had really successful host families with no children, and we've had unsuccessful families with children. So we look more at the character of the family, their willingness to host, their lifestyle, more so than whether or not they have children. So they may have children, but we don't necessarily only select them because of that. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Just a quick note to everybody. Rotary Youth Exchange host families do not receive any compensation whatsoever for hosting students. We don't want families to sign up to host students strictly for financial gain. So again, important to keep in mind. Yeah,
thank you. That is a great point, Mark. I did a five-week exchange program to Quebec in university, and they were definitely paid, and it showed. There was more of you have a room in our home, but we're not a family. And it definitely felt very different from the host family experience with Rotary. So not that I'm putting down any other program, just saying that you do notice the difference in those contexts. Do you have to have COVID vaccine to go? Yes, you will be required to be vaccinated in order to go. Okay, is there someone that can assist with trying to figure out what countries you can put on your list, tips on what factors to consider? Yeah, so when you connect with us, we are certainly happy to put you in touch with whether it's rebounds that went to a certain country you might be having questions about, or inbounds. You can talk to us as well. We can give you certain tips or criteria. Yeah, so we can certainly help you out with that selection if you're having difficulty. We find most students come to the table already having a few countries they want to go to. It's usually not the top 5 that are an issue. It's the bottom 7 where they're like, I don't know what my 12th highest choice is. Who makes that choice? But usually the top 5 and even sometimes top 10 are pretty easy choices. It's after that where people start to go, well, what should I pick now? Okay. Are the host families different every year, or are they the same ones? It depends on the club. We have some clubs that have had families that have hosted year after year and they love the experience, and others that host once or twice, and then because of life situations, they aren't able to host anymore, or they move away or what have you. So some host families have hosted before. Some of your host families will be new ones. Okay. Yes, and Marika, thank you for mentioning that about volunteering. That's great. Can they join sports team in the host country? Yes, absolutely, and we encourage it. It's a great way for them to connect, and a great way for them to make friends in the host country, which is great. You'll find the list of countries on the application when that gets sent to them. Okay, so it lists all the countries they're able to choose. Okay, perfect. All right, great. And I want to take one more moment here while we've got kind of the guest speaker slide up, because we have Rachel Hurst, who has been messaging in the chat here, which is awesome. She's been making a few comments, but Rachel is one of our rebounds. She mentioned that she went to Germany. So Rachel, if you'd like to speak for a minute or two, just about your experience, because it's just like Mateo, you were on exchange and it was interrupted by COVID. So that's quite a unique experience, but it's also really recent. So if you'd like to take a moment to speak to us about that, we would love that.
Yeah, so I'm Rachel. I went on exchange to Flensburg, Germany. I went 2019, 2020. And my host club, or my sponsor club is Own Sound. I think that being on exchange during a pandemic was a whole other issue. I don't want to call it an issue necessarily. It was a really good learning experience, and it gave you an opportunity to really bond with your family that you were staying with. I was really lucky with both of my host families. I got along with them, and it was 2 completely different experiences for both of them. Kind of the big things that I wanted to touch on was the supports, once again, that you have in Canada and the connections you make. So my outbound group, I think there was 15 or 18 of us going obviously all over the world. And while we were gone, we talked every day. Like, we had a group chat, we had Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp. We talked every single day. We're still all in contact. We talk every once in a while. I met up with 2 of the other outbounds that went out with me. Went out for dinner with them the other day. Like, you really learn to have connections with those people, and they're people that you wouldn't necessarily think that you were going to be friends with without having that connection of exchange. And then also touching on the supports you're going to have as a parent, because I know there's a lot of parents on the information meeting. The connection you're going to have with other parents. I know that my mom was really close with 2 others, Suzanne, who's on the call, my mom, Suzanne, and another mom, Anne Marie, they were all very close. They have their little outbound exchange mom squad that they used to get together and kind of support each other, and they would talk a lot and kind of explain the different issues that their kids were going through and that they were going through. So I think it's important as a parent that you also find supports within the Rotary community, because I think that that can really be really beneficial. So you can go to other parents versus going to your kid and maybe putting some of the pressure or the emotional burden on them. And I think that 6330 is like the best district to prepare you to go, because I know that some of my friends that are part of Central States didn't have any conferences until we went to the Grand Rapids conference, at the very end of the year. So they had their first conference in July and they were going out in August. And we had conferences from November on. So if you're interested in exchange, we hosted an exchange student the year before I went on exchange, and kind of the cool connection that I have is the Rotary exchange student from Germany that was hosted by the Own Sound Club actually lived with my mom in the 90s, and we're still in contact with them. So I think that Rotary opens up a ton of doors, and that the supports you have are going to stay with you, because I know that we still as outbounds organize, or as rebounds now, I guess, we still organize unsanctioned Rotary events that we do. Like we all get together at someone's house and camp and go to the beach and have fun and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily something that you're only going to see them through Rotary. You can make those connections regardless.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. That's so great. Thanks for, I didn't know you were going to be on here tonight. So thank you. What a good surprise. And nice to see you. Okay.
Kirk, you're on mute.
Wow, I did that. You know, I run Zoom workshops all day, every day for my job. And I'm usually pretty good for not doing that. But hey, at 8 o'clock at night, I guess that's what happens. So sorry about that. Anyway, Rachel, thank you so much. I didn't know you were going to be here tonight. So it's super cool to see you. So thank you for being here and thank you for speaking. That's awesome. Okay, so we'll quickly go over a couple of frequently asked questions. I know a lot of questions have come in the chat, which is excellent, but I just want to make sure I touched on a couple of these ones that we do tend to be asked a lot. Do I need to be proficient or fluent in the language of the host country? No. Now, some countries do require previous language skills, such as France and Germany will say that as well, but it is dependent in terms of how fluent you are or how much you know. And language acquisition and practice are part of our orientation and training process. So we do make them work on learning whatever language they'll be needing to speak in their host country. And as I mentioned earlier, some countries do require language camp upon arrival. So before they go to their host city, they might do a language camp for 1 or 2 weeks, depending on what country they're going to. All right. Will there be other exchange students in the same host family? Generally speaking, no. Usually you're one Rotary exchange student in a family. There are odd circumstances or temporary circumstances where that could happen, but no, it's not as though they have, 8 exchange students all shoved in a home. You have your own home. Are certain vaccinations a requirement? Yes, just like with COVID, each country has their own specific vaccination requirements in addition to COVID, and you do have to have those in order to get your visa and be allowed to go. And does my family have to host a student if I go on exchange? No. So we're not a true exchange program in that sense. Some countries out in the world, and I think Rachel mentioned this in the chat, some countries do require you to host if you send a student, but our district does not require that. That being said, I will always say, if your family is interested in hosting a Rotary Youth Exchange student, we are always looking for host families. It is an incredible experience. My dad is someone who once told me, I don't know why everyone's so gung-ho about learning French. I grew up in this area. I've never spoken a word of French in my life, and I think I've gotten by quite fine. He didn't see the need to leave Middlesex County. And then suddenly we had a couple of exchange students, and he wants to go to Venezuela. He wants to travel to France. Oh, we should check out Belgium. Oh, I've never been. And night and day, all because we hosted these students that he was able to connect with and learn from. And he became so curious about the rest of the world. So yes, the students are experiencing culture shock and learning about other cultures, but so are you as a host family. So it's a really rewarding experience. So no, you are not required to host an exchange student, but we are certainly happy if you are interested in hosting an exchange student. And we'd love to have that conversation with you if you're interested. Okay. So we've reached the end of kind of my presentation, rather our presentation. So now if there's any outstanding questions, people can put them in the chat. You're also welcome to unmute yourself and just ask your question out loud if that's easier. So are there any outstanding questions? As you may notice, I'm currently watching The Office for the first time. I know I'm about 15 years behind, but I'm here now watching The Office. So, you gotta have an appropriate Office gif here. Okay, seeing no questions, I'll move on to next steps, but certainly you can, always send us other questions. I have my email on the next slide. You can talk to your local Rotary Club. We really encourage you to, get information. This is obviously a big commitment and we understand that. And we want you to know that it's right for you and for your family. So certainly ask lots and lots of questions because that's the best way to find out what you need to know. So next steps quickly, complete a preliminary application, which is available on our website, and I'll have a QR code. And I can also email everybody after. I think this will capture your email addresses, or if you're not sure, pop your email address in the chat and I can send you that. Okay. And I can even send you the slides as well. So just put your email address in the chat if you're interested. So you'll complete a preliminary application. Then you'll meet with your local Rotary Club, if you haven't already, to gain sponsorship and be interviewed. So that's when they say, yeah, we're willing to sponsor you, and they'll probably interview you before that as well. Then you'll begin working on the Central States application. That's the one that Julia was bringing up. So she's done the preliminary application already. Now she's ready for that third step of the Central States application. Then you'd be planning on attending the district interview conference on November 6th, which will be the Canadian one, or November 13th, which is the US one. Okay, and you'll be attending with your parents. We interview both you and your parents. Okay, and then one other thing quickly, if you don't already have it, is you would apply for a passport because you will need obviously a passport before you go out. So there you go. There's our pitch. There it is. There's our spiel. So if you're interested, please contact your local Rotary Club or email me directly or call me directly, text me, any way is fine, WhatsApp me, all of those work. I'm happy to chat more about it, answer any questions. And like we said, you can also contact your local Rotary Club. Mark has put his information there as well. So I want to thank our guest speakers, Enrique and Rachel and Mateo and oh my gosh, Grace, there we go. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for showing interest. We really hope that we get some of your applications and that we see you at interviews. So I'll stay on for a couple minutes after in case people have questions, but otherwise you are welcome to go. Have a wonderful night. Take care, everybody.